that standard, right? And then we'll hire someone else. We'll contract someone else to say, like, we're going to do a prescribed fire, every 3 years, every 5 years, every 7 years, kind of depending on topography and elevation, the conifer mix, right? So you can do fire safety, but it has to be done at a massive scale. Like what we're doing now, or, 2 acre burns, sure, it helps. And focusing on the wildland urban interface, sure, it helps. But we need to start treating a landscape scale, because our forests are a tinderbox. And it's going to take a lot of government money. We cannot tax cut our way to a safe forest.
Let me build on that a little bit too, because recently the state auditor released and this is something I didn't tell you about before, but I'm going to give you context to it. Don't worry. I love throwing questions at candidates.
Good. Hey,
without any prep.
I like it.
That's how this should be, right?
Yeah.
Keep you on your toes. The state auditor claimed in their review of the state, like how we are mitigating fires, that we're not doing enough to punish places like companies like PG&E, who have been deemed at fault for several fires, including the most deadly fire in California history, the Camp Fire.
Yeah.
Not enough is being done. That's what the auditor said. We need to do more to prevent these fires being caused by electrical failure or whatever. What are your thoughts on that? How do you hold places like a PG&E who have a lot of money? How do you hold them accountable?
Yeah, unlike my opponent who gets campaign donations from PG&E, I think PG&E needs to get slammed. I think they should not exist as a private company anymore. Obviously we'll still have linemen. We'll still have everyone who works at PG&E that's not an executive will still have a job. They'll just have different ownership. Because PG&E, it had a monopoly, and that's fine. Obviously, you're not going to run 3 electrical lines to your house and pick the lowest cost, but it's a regulated monopoly, and it failed, right? And California failed as a regulator. A lot of people should be fired at the state, in FERC, basically. I'm sorry, CPUC, California Public Utility Commission. I don't like the governor's plan. I think that's one of my big complaints about Governor Newsom, is that he bailed out PG&E, because he also got campaign donations from PG&E. So if you like Newsom, sorry, that's something that I have a big complaint about him. And if you don't like Newsom, and you don't like how he handled PG&E, well, know that he and Doug LaMalfa they're in bed with the same pot of money. So, part of being a government means regulation, and it means punishing companies that do the wrong thing and not just letting them become too big to fail.
So we touched on fire, drought, big things. We learned what little you know about Reading, but that you respect Reading.
Right.
So
I know the name changed, right? So that's kind of weird.
The what?
Well, it was reading and then I was writing. Big debate for about 20 years.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, wow.
I'm a Reading native, and I didn't know that.
Go down to the Historical Society on your Main Street, right?
I have never been in that building. I should.
Yeah.
It is.
Sorry, now I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, now I gotta go and learn my Reading history. That would make sense at the Historical Society that they teach you about Reading's history. Doug LaMalfa has served on this seat, as I said at the beginning of this, since 2013. The last challenger, was it Audrey or Aubrey? Audrey Denny ran twice against him.
Yep.
2020, 2018. And she lost by a significant margin both times, if we're just being honest. I hope Audrey doesn't hear this. I'm sorry. It's just the truth. He's pretty cemented in that seat, Max. So how do you beat Doug LaMalfa?
Yeah, I think the only Democrat that can beat a Republican in District 1, one has to understand that he's not running for a career, right? Like, maybe I'll win a term. Maybe I'll win a re-election. But if there's a deep bench of Republicans up here, and most of them can do a better job than Doug. So, one is, finding a candidate who's a Democrat that's like, hey, I'm running because, I have one issue I want to solve. I want to make sure that no one gets burned out like this again. But it's also finding a candidate that fits the district. So, I'm a combat veteran, right? Every county in this district, you cross the county line, it says where we love our veterans, right at the bottom. And Doug LaMalfa has never served, right? I'm sick of Republicans claiming that they're the patriotic party. They're just not quite patriotic enough to join the military. And obviously, this is a bipartisan failure of our system. But Democrats don't brag about it quite as much. It rubs me a little less. So I think you're going to have to find a Democrat. You're going to have to find someone who respects the Second Amendment. You're going to have to find someone who cares about an issue that people in this district care about, and that's fire and it's water. And I think that combination, along with the fact that Doug has been there 10 years, and your life is probably not much better than it was 10 years ago, right? We should have change in our politicians. We don't want them to hang out for 30 years. We don't want Doug LaMalfa to be the Nancy Pelosi of the Northstate. You know, like, go in with some good ideas, try to accomplish them. If you do, great, you know, get out of the way so someone with new ideas can come. And if you don't, you know, expect to be unelected, expect to get voted out because you failed as a politician.
Your biggest strength, you think, as a politician, that gives you the best chance of defeating LaMalfa, what would that be?
I think I am not afraid to be boots on ground, right? Like, I spend hours in front of Walmart, right? Like, I like talking to
You
people.
really like the Walmart over here.
Well, one, because they let me do it, right? Like, Walmart has never called the cops on me for tabling. Trader Joe's has, so that's
Trader Joe's
in
Reading? I
no,
meant
in Chico.
Okay.
You know, like, obviously, I wish the Walmart family would give me lots of money, but they're Republican. They won't. But they let me talk outside their store, and that's, like, a respect for the First Amendment that I'm like, great. But really, you know, like, I want to talk to people. I want to hear about their problems. I want to show them that I care about them, right? Like, I go out, I wear my combat boots because it turns out trying to stand on your feet for like 8 hours in business shoes, uncomfortable. But I can do it in boots for days. So, you know, I think it's going to take someone that likes talking to people and that wants to be a face for, you know, a party that is, rightly or wrongly, distrusted in this part of the state.
And then, you know, we were discussing, there's a lot of topics. It's a huge state. It's the biggest state. There's a lot that we could cover.
And we're the biggest district.
And this is the biggest district, yes. So, you know, we could talk about gun rights. We could talk about abortion. We could talk about public safety, policing. I want to, in relation to Reading, because again, that's where we're doing this interview. Public safety is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Mental health.
Yeah.
Heavily ties in to public safety. Just a couple weeks ago, because it's been the talk of the town, understandably, a young man who worked at Taco Bell is on his break and he gets stabbed to death by a guy who's mentally ill and homeless. Homelessness, huge issue. Again, ties into public safety, ties into mental health. Where are we on that, Max?
You know, I think we need to reinstitute asylums. I think that is the core answer, is that most homeless people are either mentally ill or they're addicted to drugs and broken, right? Like, so they're mentally incompetent. And I think the idea that we can just throw services at them and hope that they stick is crazy. I think the biggest mistake that California made on homelessness was under Reagan when they closed asylums. And obviously, you know, Reagan wanted small government. He wanted to say like, oh, we'll have faith communities treat them. And the liberals were basically at the time saying, oh, Nurse Ratched, really bad. You know, and there were violations and you know, like, there were problems in our asylum kind of network. But obviously the alternative has been a disaster, both for the homeless people and for the communities in which they live. So that's kind of a state issue. What I want to do federally, I want to build enough veteran homes so that everyone who's ever served in the military, if they are homeless, they have a bed, right? And they, you know, I want them to get the treatment they deserve. And I don't want it to be voluntary, because I think at the end of the day, you know, if you're homeless, you were broken. And if you're homeless and a veteran, then, you know, like, the state owes you a responsibility to try to fix you, or at least to make sure that you have a roof, a shower, and a toilet, you know, for the rest of your life.
Well, with asylums, to touch on that, are you saying that you think we should, of course, it's circumstantial, but take away their right, like their ability to choose to go in there? You're saying that in some situations we might have to force these people into these asylums where they don't get the choice anymore.
Exactly. Right. And I mean,
because that's the big issue, is that you can't force someone to go to rehab.
Right.
And that's the issue.
I'll tell you, right, like, Chico is a huge problem right now, right? Or Chico in the Democratic
Homelessness
Party.
is a huge problem.
Homelessness is a huge problem in Chico. The Democratic Party is saying, like, we want all treatment to be voluntary. And I disagree, right? I'm you know, this is part of what makes me a Democrat. Like, I want the government to solve problems. I realize that we can't just be this hyper-individualist society where we think that everyone deep down is like a super competent, they'll be able to fix themselves and pull themselves out by the bootstrap. Like, no, I want a safety net. But I also don't want that safety net to be optional, right? Like, I don't want a big company to dump human waste into a river. But I also don't want a community of homeless people to dump human waste into a river, right? We live in a community, and communities have rules. And, you know, like, I want the government to enforce those rules and to try to fix people that are broken, absolutely. But ultimately, you know, my wife, I live in Chico, homelessness is a big issue there. My wife is afraid to go walking at night along the creek.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and when we have kids,
same thing with the river trail.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't have a problem walking the river trail, right? But, like, I'm a 36-year-old guy who's killed people in Iraq, right? Like, I think I'll be okay, right? But my sister-in-law, she doesn't like to watch the river trail either.
No.
And that's bad. I mean, like, right, we built this river trail with taxpayer dollars so that the community could enjoy it. And we should be, adults about how we maintain it, right? It's not enough to just build something and hope that people show up and respect it, right? You need rules. Societies are built on rules. And fundamentally, homeless people are breaking one of those rules. So we're gonna put them aside, and we're gonna try to fix them. And we're gonna, put resources on them. So
You're saying we're not going to be as...
We're not going to buy them a bus ticket and send them down to Sacramento, which is what a lot of people want.
Or they come out of the prisons up near...
right.
Why am I forgetting the name? Susanville? Not
Susanville.
Is it Susanville?
Yeah, in Lasson County.
Yep, sorry.
Yep.
I'm from the area. I should know these things. I do know these things. And then
in district.
Yeah, and then they come down here, and that's how Reading gets this homelessness issue.
Yeah, and Chico, obviously, I think they did a point-in-time count. 40 or 50% of homeless in Chico were actually displaced by the campfire, so they were from Paradise.
Yeah.
So, this is traumatic. It's socially traumatic, but we can't just pretend that it'll get better if we don't do anything different.
Sure. I think one more question. I'm going to grab these. It's just my eyes are killing me, Max. You're toughing it out. I can't.
Fine.
I got the Ray-Bans here.
Do 2 years in Iraq. Your eyes look best.
Yeah, no, I'll pass. But that's fair. I can understand how you can do that. So forgive me for this. If people are upset that I'm wearing sunglasses, it's just very
I
bright.
think they're really stylish sunglasses, by the way.
Thank you. I had a gentleman yesterday say I'm very urban dressed for Reading. I look too urban. And I took that as a compliment.
If someone was watching this video and they were told, like, one person in this clip is a Democrat, I think they'd pick you.
I'd probably, yeah. Or
a Democrat born in Sacramento, they'd probably pick you.
Yeah, I'm a Reading native, born and raised. Go figure. So, the prison system.
Yeah.
I personally have been following the elderly parole program, which is a law in California in 2018 became a law and it's, of course, because the prisons are too filled. We need a way to loosen the prison system. But anyone that's above 50 and has served 20 or so years is allowed to potentially have a parole hearing. Doesn't matter what they've done. They could be, and in most cases they are, a sex offender who raped and kidnapped someone and had 70 years sentence.
You don't get a 20-year sentence for stealing a bag of Skittles.
No, you don't. And so it's become an issue, and obviously there's a lot of people that I've been speaking with, if you watch any of my stories, that are speaking out against it because they're scared. They're victims. They don't want to see this person who wasn't supposed to be on the street until they were, 90 or something, or dead. I mean, they would have never even gotten out. They can now get out at 60. But the reason that is happening, the reason that became a law, presumably, is because we have too many people in our prisons. There's a lot of people that have ideas or concepts about this. What is a solution or a step in the right direction?
Yeah, so, one, I'll do the politician dodge. I'm like, prisons, they're mostly a state and local issue. Federal crimes, we don't have that, the grandfather exemption.
Right.
But, I'll answer the question. I guess I'm going to disagree a bit, right? Like, I think, the sentence that you get handed down should only be changed very rarely. That said, obviously 20 years ago, we were in the midst of 3 strikes. Sure, I can see the argument that, like, let's revisit someone after 20, 25 years. Maybe they've been a model prisoner.
Sure.
Like, that makes sense. And, by the time you're 60, 70 years old, you're probably not committing a violent crime again. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just speaking off the cuff there.
Yeah.
But, I do think, like, sure, there are some things we can do on criminal justice, but I actually think, like, what we're seeing in California right now is kind of the opposite problem, right? Under-enforcement, right? So I guess I have, I understand the argument. We should be more ready to let prisoners out of jail that have changed themselves. Sure, absolutely. I guess I'm with that. But I'm not okay with the current movement in a large part of the state to say we're going to decriminalize more things. We're going to drive down prisoner numbers by sending less people to prison.
Right.
Like, I guess I would rather, you're seeing my evolution as I think through this question. I would rather release people who have fixed themselves than not send people to jail. Like, I think, especially the San Francisco experience has shown, if you decriminalize shoplifting, you will get more shoplifting, right? Societies depend on rules. Bringing it back to the homelessness thing, you need to enforce people that break those rules, and part of that is prison, right?
Yeah. So, I want to wrap this up here soon. We were talking,
right.
Yeah. But just to make clear there, and what you were trying to say as well, bigger picture, because we didn't exactly touch on, but policing. Not a fan of the concept of defunding police.
No, I think it's silly.
More law and order.
I think I've talked to a lot of sheriffs across this district because they're elected officials and they have a good tap, and obviously public safety, super important for any congressional candidate. And all of them are having problems with hiring. None of them can find the guys they need. I had one sheriff in South County, in South District, basically say like, hey, we used to open up a police slot and we get 25, 30 applicants for each slot, qualified applicants. Now we're lucky if we get one or two, right? So I think this is not a funding issue, right? And they said, so I'll bring it back. They said the problem is that people don't want to be police officers anymore. There's no honor in it. They feel like they're judged by society. And I think a lot of that responsibility is politicians who've just treated police like a punching bag for their own failures, right? People are concerned about homelessness. Well, homelessness isn't the police's fault. People are concerned about a lack of accountability in the police force. Sure, that's a problem, but you can enforce that accountability from the board of supervisors or from the state. I think we need to make policing something that people want to do as a job again. And I feel like there are too few people graduating high school that say man, I want to be a police officer for 40 years. So I think that's my take. So absolutely, I'm against defunding. I want to make policing something that people dream of being again. I want there to be
firemen in this state.
Firemen, yeah, exactly.
Everyone wants to be a fireman. God bless the firemen, seriously.
Yeah.
My roommate is a Cal fireman, and I get scared. He's going back to training right now, and I'm like,
right.
you long summer ahead of you, man.
Yeah, exactly. And you're doing you're setting your emergency shelter kit.
Yeah.
You realize you're setting it up for a reason.
Yeah.
But police are worried every day, right? So I'm a member of reserves. Half of my unit are cops, or law enforcement. And there does seem to be there's been this societal shift against the police, where it's kind of us versus them. And police, they become police officers because they want to serve their community. And sure, there are some bad apples. There are some bad apples in the military too. And we do a pretty good job investigating them and throwing them out and holding them accountable. I think too many politicians, especially on the left, have been too hard on the police. There's this understanding that they can pick them because they're not perfect. Guys, I was in the Army. The Army is not perfect. It's just not everyone in Iraq had a smartphone.
All right, we'll end there.
Sorry.
No, it's true. I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying. Max Steiner, Democrat from Chico, from Sacramento, lives in Chico, running to defeat Doug LaMalfa, who's in his 5th term, 1st Congressional District of California. Max, first off, I'll shake your hand and say thank you so much for meeting with me, letting me chill out here, get my tan on. People that know me know I love to just sit and talk in the sun if possible, as the Italian that I am.
Well, absolutely. Well, hey,
Italian that I am.
There's no tree cover here anymore.
No, there is not. So I'm getting baked. But any final thoughts, any comments you want to say?
Yeah, listen, if you want to change, if you want more moderates in Congress, if you want more veterans in Congress, I'm your guy, right? And you're going to get a chance to chuck me out in 2 years if you're just looking at me as someone who can get you a better Republican later. So I will take your vote either way. If you're a Democrat, hey, vote for me. The best chance you've had against LaMalfa in a long time. And if you're a Republican and you're like, oh, I like moderates, I like veterans, I want to see what this guy can do, and you're unhappy with the status quo, I'm your guy as well. So that's my message to independents, my message to Republicans, it's my message to Democrats. And even if they don't vote for me, I will represent you in D.C. I fought for this country for 2 years in Iraq. I will fight for you for 2 years in Washington.
Max Steiner, everybody, thank you for watching. Again, keep following with us. We got more candidates, more people to sit down with. I'm sure I'll have a sit down with Mr. LaMalfa here soon, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, guys.